Oh, you want to know how Monster Hunter now is going so far? Well...
Why don't you exist? 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 Why don't you exist?
Hello, my fellow hunters. Welcome one, welcome all, as we continue our endless crusade to save our world from this monster invasion, and to desperately get the parts that we need without having to head out on a 3-day trek from our house, complete with full camping supplies. Oh, okay, no, I exaggerate. But only a little. I wanted to kind of catch up and see how you are getting on with Monster Hunter now. Now it's been released a little bit, approaching that 2-week mark. By all accounts, yeah, everyone seems to be loving it. It's getting good reviews, good feedback, good impressions, and generally you can see why. It does a really fantastic job of capturing the essence of monster hunting and then recontextualizing it in that mobile on-the-go type environment.
Especially the essence of the desire sensor.
And in terms of core systems, the gameplay, the weapons, the monsters, how it looks, how it feels, there really is very few things to complain about, and I am mighty impressed that it is holding up so well and continuing to do so. There's over 5 million downloads of it now, and that speaks for itself. Everyone I've asked who's gotten stuck in has kind of universally reported back that, yeah, this is a blast. It feels like some proper bit of monster hunting. The monsters act like we expect them to. The weapons act like we expect them to. The hunting, while re-engineered for a more, timer-based system with less of the layers and complexity of a real hunt, feels kinda how you expect a hunt to feel. And then the added little differences of the new skills, playing for the timer, min-maxing your DPS, and rising up through the quite challenging star ranks. Once you start hitting 5-star monsters plus, the game really goes, okay, I hope you've been paying attention, I hope you've been upgrading your gear, because otherwise, I'm about to slap you harder than a Rajang missing its tail. And you feel it. And difficulty is something we're going to talk about, as is the recent, very interesting comments the devs have made about the game, along with what's coming up and some promises they've made to change some things for the better. Because I do have 4 problems with Monster Hunter now. 2 of them are very fixable, and I hope they do get fixed, and the other 2 were not so much the game's fault as the medium's fault. So those latter 2 will get out the way first. The fact that a lot of the time it's really struggling to keep you connected while you're out and about, which a lot of the time comes down to not the game, but, whatever internet you've actually got on your phone and how well your connection is holding up. I do feel like it disconnects and reconnects a little bit too much, though. Like, it's not like you're on your phone and your internet's constantly up and down, but it does seem to be that way within Monster Hunter now, and it gets a little bit freaked out about where you actually are and decides that you're suddenly speeding and can't play despite you just being sat on like a bench in a park somewhere, and that's interesting, but it does lead to certain frustrations. You have no idea how seething I was at this Legiana. I was finally about to beat that 5-star urgent, and I get walled by a connection error. Look forward to that, Pro and Noob, let me tell you. The other one is kinda just where you live, right? If you're in the middle of a dense city, you've got loads to be getting on with, loads of nodes, loads of monsters, but if you're a little bit further out, there's just kind of nothing happening, and you might not even be able to interact with the game unless you do some quite serious actual traveling, and that kind of sucks, but it's sort of the nature of a locational-based game, but they certainly could up the density, and that's the thing I think they should. The other 2 big issues, then, are the drop chances. Getting anything that isn't Rarity 1 to drop feels like bashing your head against a Gravios. It is just... don't get me wrong, a game like this is supposed to be played over months and months and months, slowly progressed, and that's all well and good. But I think it's a little bit too overcorrected. And what I mean by that is, back in the early previews and betas that me and other creators and testers were in, the drop rates were actually really good. And I think they realized that and they went too far in the other direction, and I hope they walk it back a little bit, because once you start to reach that grade 4-ish level, from that point onwards, it is a lot to actually progress your equipment, and with how brutal the monsters get, how much health they have relative to the timer, how much damage they do to you, you need to progress your equipment, because at a certain point it is just a numbers game, and that's not inherently bad, that's just the nature of the beast, as it were, but it should be a little bit easier to actually progress. And then past that, healing. Potions are way too, weak and stingily handed out, and this is something they have actually talked about, so we'll get to that when we get to that, but it is something that definitively needs improvement, and the devs are aware of it too. So basically that's kind of where I am. I am unabashedly very compelled and enamored with it. I have been on so many walks just to hunt down monsters and farm bits, and that's really nice to do, you know, go out in the world and stare at a screen still, but, you know, you're out in a world while you're staring at the screen, so that makes it totally healthy and good for you. So that's really quite fun, and it is nice just to have an actual solid Monster Hunter mobile game where you can tell that Capcom themselves are heavily involved, because a lot of that Monster Hunter-y goodness is preserved and is there. And as I said, it's no surprise that it is getting the reception that it's getting, because bottom line, outside of numbers and drop rates and healing, it just feels good and fun to walk around finding monsters and then hunting them down. Like, it works, and that is excellent, and it's really, really nice to see, and I hope it doesn't go down any dark paths when it comes to that shop, and we can keep having this for years to come. So, in those years to come then, let's actually have a look at what they might bring us, because we got a lot of good information thanks to the Tokyo Game Show. So, one thing then is the drama, I say drama, but the general upsetness that the Diablos event caused, mainly because they released an event on a much more endgame 5-star monster a week after the game came out, which means many people weren't even there, and those that could see Diablos would have basically no chance in hell of actually killing one, which was kind of sad, and it rightly miffed a lot of hunters off. They have defended it, saying that they just wanted to show kind of what you're aiming for, a little tease at the pinnacle of hunting, and it brings everyone together to work on them, and I get that, but at the same time, I think it's inarguable that the first event should have been a 3-4 star monster that everyone really could have get stuck into. We're going to get events like a Halloween event, which is nice and expected in a game like this, and we do have that major update coming in December where we're going to get Zenogre. I mean, interestingly enough, the now devs have said that eventually they would love to have every monster that is in Monster Hunter in the game, but we'll see if it gets that far. I mean, if it goes the way of Pokemon Go, then maybe. Oh, and did you know in the Diablos event there was rare Black Diablos, but they were so rare that you had to be extremely lucky just to see one, never mind get enough parts to craft anything, because it did come with its armor set, so that was kind of anticlimactic too, and I think the events in general need their definitive tweaking to be a little bit more satisfying. We're going to get loads of small and larger events, which is really nice, and we just got a few little comments on their ethos towards it, how because it's a game on your phone, they don't want to compromise from the main series, and that's one thing that you do feel, and is really nice, and more monsters coming, and all those lovely little tidbits. It's nice to always get a little bit of an insight as to how they're thinking when it comes to a game and the ethos behind it, but the much more exciting things are here. So, developers say they're listening to the feedback of the players. They're looking at ways to improve the healing system. This is the big one, and it's one that is kind of felt as you get higher up to 5-star and beyond. Because as I say, the difficulty gets brutal if you do not have the right equipment, and getting the right equipment is brutal because of the abysmal drop rates. So you end up trying to do these monsters, getting absolutely smashed and chugging through your limited healing, which means you either pay to buy more healing, which is an incredibly inefficient use of, well, your money, or you just wait for the daily first aid meds and have a few more tries. You're just kind of too limited by healing, and yes, if you don't get hit, you don't need healing, but eventually you always will, and it is just proving the big bottleneck, which is kind of the point, because they want to make money on people paying to relieve that bottleneck, but it is very nice to know that they have accepted it's too bottlenecky. For me, there's two simple changes, and then everything is great. Number one, potions should just fully heal you no matter what health you're on. It shouldn't take 2 potions to get back to full if you're at low health. A potion should just fully heal you and you're good. That way, if you were to buy a 5-stack of potions, that's 5 full health goes at a monster you're struggling with, as opposed to having to spend 2 at a go. Past that, just give everyone 10 first aid meds a day instead of 5. Just fill the stock of first aid meds every day, and that's a good amount to be getting on with, because if you are good at the game, 10 gets you very, very far, and that will feel very nice and fair, where you can pay to do more, but you don't feel like you need to, so that's what I would do. They always fully heal you, and you get 10 every day. And they, well, seem to be knowing this, where they want an extra potion, or they need one, and they don't have one, and they don't want that to be a point of contention or frustration. Sadly, they're not going to be putting any online multiplayer, so that's a little bit lame. It would be nice to just hunt with people, but they do want you to actually go out into the world and do the hunting, so I suppose it makes sense from that perspective. And then a really exciting one is getting layered armor, because right now we all do look like classic Monster Hunter clowns from the days pre-transmog, which, you know, were fun of themselves, but definitely left a lot to be desired fashion-wise. Though crafting armor just for fashion with how hard it is to get resources is also quite the investment here, so we'll see how that goes. And that's kind of it. Other just general, you know, buzz sentences to say. They're listening, they want to make improvements. We'll see how those actually develop. But if we do get layered armor, we do get more monsters, big updates, and a better healing system, then yeah, that is really, really promising, and will go a long way to getting a little bit of trust. Because so far, what we have here is a really solid core game, and it's only really some numbers tweaks to the higher endgamey end that are causing a little bit of frustration, but for the most part, it is satisfying. And if you do play it super slowly, just grabbing what you can, when you can, doing some quick hunts, there is so much fun to be had, and overall, I am really impressed with how it's panning out this far after release, but of course, there is a long, long way still to go, and I would love to know how you guys are feeling about it, those that are getting stuck in, those that are playing, and if you would like some further guides and indeed builds for the weapons, because we're getting to that sort of point, well, let us know too. For now then, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.